All right, so this video quality might not be super clear. Mostly that's because the picture itself is not super clear. I'm gonna try to do this in one take, so sorry if I make any mistakes. And my goal is for this to not be any longer than 15 minutes max. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going through some of the same questions we had highlighted today. So question 12 says that you're dividing. So remember, dividing for us usually means this synthetic division. And it says you're left with the following remainders. So that's the box down in the bottom. The question is asking which of these must be a root of the polynomial. So the first question is which of these are even factors? So what number do you need to get in the end for them to be a factor? And hopefully you recognize you need 0 to be the root. So these two are solutions or roots. And so these are the factors. The question is, what's the root? So if x minus 1 is a factor, then a root is 1. If x plus 3 is a factor, then the root is negative 3. So the correct answer here that's listed is going to be negative 3. All right. Question 14 says, consider the equation. Which one is an extraneous solution? So remember, extraneous means it looks like it works, but it doesn't work. And you cannot get this from your calculator. All right, so think about visitors. The square root, the visitors are already gone. So we're going to have to square both sides. So if you square this side, that's going to give you 25x squared equals 8 plus 10x. Now we've got x squared, and we talked about that today. It means we need it to equal 0. So I'm going to set this equal to 0 minus 10x minus 8 equals 0. Top number, bottom number. 25 times negative 8 is negative 200. Negative 10 at the bottom. All right, those two numbers are going to be negative 20 and positive 10. And I know I'm going faster than you can probably think of those numbers, but I feel like you know how to get those. And remember, this is bottoms up. So this is x minus 20 over 25 and x plus 10 over 25. All right, so I'm going to simplify. This is going to be negative 4/5, which is going to give me 5x minus 4. This is 2/5, which is going to give me 5x plus 2. So this gives me two solutions, 4/5 and negative 2/5. So I already know that the only possible solutions are 4/5 and negative 2/5. So the answer can't be either of these because those aren't even solutions in the first place. So extraneous means that when you plug these in, they don't work, okay? So you would take a second to plug both of those in. And if I do that, if I plug 4/5 in, that gives me 4 equals the square root of 8 plus, what is that, 40 divided by 8? All right, so 4 does equal the square root of 16, so that one works. If I check negative 2/5, that gives me negative 2 equals the square root of 8 plus, what is that, negative 20 over 5, so negative 4. So that means the square root of 4 equals negative 2, which that one is not going to work, right, in this instance. So the correct answer here is M because it's extraneous. It doesn't work when you plug it back in. The biggest thing I need you to be able to do more than anything is know this first step and then know how to get through this step to at least find the possible solutions. And this one is hard with the fractions. I totally get that. All right, question 15. Hopefully with these answer choices over here, you remember that this is quadratic formula. So that's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root. B squared, remember you should do that part in your head, minus 4ac all over 2a. Oop. 2 times 3. So we're going to simplify what's underneath the square root first. So 36 minus, so this is plus or minus square root of negative 24 over 6. 6 plus or minus, so we're going to break this part down. You all know that the negative means there's going to be an I in my answer. Square root of 4 times square root of 6 gives me 24, and the square root of 4 is 2. Remember, you need to pick a perfect square there. And now this is a 3-part fraction. We're just trying to simplify the whole numbers, we can't simplify the square root of 6. So knowing that there's a square root of 6 left automatically should tell you that B doesn't make any sense. And then if you simplify all those, you can divide them by 2. So this becomes 3 plus or minus I square root 6 over 3. And the answer choices, I think personally, these are written a little strangely, but the one that's going to match with that is going to be A, because 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then, so they're just splitting that fraction apart. So you need to know quadratic formula on that one. So if you don't have quadratic formula written down, make sure you write that down. Question 16, again, you need to know to set these equal, but with the decimals, I'm going to assume that 16 is a calculator question. So you're just typing these in your calculator. And remember that you need to be looking for these specific values. So you need to set in your calculator. Here, I'll show you. You need to make sure when you go to the table and set this in your calculator that you're counting by 0.1s. Another option, I guess, would be to plug those specific values in. But if you count by 0.1s, when you go to look in your table, negative 4.1 and negative 2.3, all those will pop up. And the correct answer on 16, I'm cheating. Don't you wish you could do that? Don't do that. I don't condone cheating. Question 16. The options are 1 and so negative 4.1 and 1.6. And I think if you're using your calculator, you should have gotten that. All right. Question, we're gonna go for about 5 more minutes. Question 17. There's a handful of ways to kind of do this, but the easiest thing I think is probably just to think about what this common base is. So for instance, 27 could be written as a base of 3, right? You can write this as 3 to the third times 3 to the n minus 1. And when you multiply, remember you add exponents. So this is 3 to the 3 plus n minus 1, which is going to give you this option right here. That's how we get that one. There's another option that works as well, and some of you may have kind of worked this out. You could make this 3, this was another, okay, sorry, I'm talking all over myself. 27. 27 you can write as 3 times 9. So let me write that the other way, 9 times 3, and then we've got this 3 to the n minus 1. So now if you combine those, and the only reason I'm even thinking to do that is because there are answer options here that have a 9, okay? So if we do that, that's, this is 3 to the 1, so that's 9 times 3 to the 1 plus n minus 1, which is just to the n. You might also be able to recognize that n plus 2 is 3 to the second power is 9. So if you take that 9 out, you're just left with 3 to the n. Question 18, none of you did. That was a test question. We'll talk about that one again, I guess. But question 19, hopefully, oh my goodness, if you're not thinking visitors, visitors. All right, you need to get rid of those first. So we're going to add 113 to both sides. So that's 2x plus 4 squared equals 162. Still have a visitor of 2, so I'm going to divide that one away. Equals 81. All right, now you're ready to undo this squared. So we can take the square root of both sides. That's going to undo that. Remember, when you take the square root, that gives you 2 answers. And you know you should have 2 answers because this says x squared, right? So this gives me 2 options. Either x plus 4 equals 9 or x plus 4 equals negative 9, because the square root of 81 is both 9 and negative 9. And then when you solve that, subtract 4, so x equals 5. Or x equals negative 13. So those are your 2 answers, 5 or negative 13. Okay. I would assume that this is going to be a non-calculator question. That's something you should be able to do without having to use y equals. So if you don't have this work written down, but you have those answers, make sure you know how to do that work as well. Question 20, again, we're back to quadratic formula. Remember, before you do quadratic formula, you need to set things equal to 0. And the biggest reason I recognize quadratic formula is the square root in there, to be honest with you. So I'm going to set that up, negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 8. All right, that gives me a, b, and c. So negative b plus or minus the square root. B squared, remember to do b, well, hopefully you pull the right number. Remember to do b squared in your head. Minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so negative 2 plus or minus the square root. If you can hear me, I'm typing things in my calculator right now because I haven't done these problems in a while. All right, so same thing that we did on the last one. We're going to break this down. Remember that that's going to give me an I because it's got a negative in it. And then we want to look for a perfect square in there, and I'm pretty sure this is divisible by 4. Adam, I'm remembering that we did this problem together earlier. So when you do that, this is now negative 2 plus or minus. The square root of 4 is 2. I square root 23 all over negative 6. So now we're trying to match, and hopefully, like, let's just eliminate, get in that habit of eliminating. I think you probably do that for the ACT, but if you don't, start doing that. Automatically, B doesn't make sense, and D doesn't make sense because the square root of 23 is on the outside, not the inside. So now it's a question of how do we simplify that? And again, we can divide these whole numbers by all the same thing. All those are divisible by 2 or by negative 2, and when you do that, you should get A up here to match. All right, I think we have time for one more. All right, 23 is the next one that I have highlighted. Oh, baloney. We should talk about that one together. Okay, I lied. Let's talk about 24. That'll be the last one. This one says, what is the sum of the first 9 terms? And so automatically you should turn to your formula sheet and you should see this beautiful little formula right here, sum of finite. So you just need to remember how to use that formula. All right, so S of n equals A1, that's the first term. So the first term here is 6. 1 minus R is the pattern that's happening. So I notice this is multiplying by 4 every time, so that's 4. And N right here is the number of terms. And in words, it says the first 9 terms. So that's to the 9th. All over 1 minus 4. Remember that when you type this in, this is, I didn't write this, but remember that this number, whatever this rate is, should generally go in parentheses with the exponent on the outside. Okay? And I'm not going to type that in. I think that you all know how to do that. Remember, you hit the fraction bar first, and then that way you can type it in exactly like it looks. And the final answer on question 24, again, I'm cheating. 5,024, 286. That was a test question a while back that I think most of you got right. So it's just reminding yourself that sum means to use this geometric series function off of your formula sheet. And that should be an easy question that you can get right. Okay, we will keep pushing through with some of these tomorrow.